Thank God he didn't have a seatbelt on. I never say that. Thank God he didn't have a fucking seatbelt on, because if he did,
there's no way
he would be dead.
There's
Probably,
no way.
or fucking.
How do you think the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua fight plays out?
I don't know. I want to make sure. I believe it once I see him in the ring.
If Paul starts his boxing career earlier, could Jake Paul have been a champion?
Is it possible?
The thin, fragile line between a legend and a memory is something we rarely stop to consider until the ground beneath us gives way. One moment, Anthony Joshua, a man whose very name is synonymous with physical dominance and the peak of athletic legacy, is seen laughing, breathing, and planning for a future that feels guaranteed. The next, the world is staring at the twisted wreckage of a Lexus SUV in Nigeria, trying to make sense of a tragedy that feels too violent to be real. It is a jarring, visceral reminder that no amount of fame, muscle, or money can negotiate with the brutal randomness of a stationary truck on a morning road. When the news first broke, it didn't just trickle out, it detonated. It wasn't just a report of an accident.
I'll tell y'all the truth. I told y'all. They made Mike Tyson retract his statement on Twitter. They made him rewrite a post on top of deleting a post. Yeah, I told you that fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul was rigged. I told you that. I don't care what Mike Tyson is saying now. He have to do that to secure his money. He's still an investment for future exhibition.
It was a report of a tragedy with teeth, a situation that immediately began to spiral into a complex web of grief, scrutiny, and a burgeoning social media war zone. The details are as straightforward as they are horrific. At approximately 9:30 a.m. local time, a vehicle carrying Anthony Joshua and 3 others collided with a stationary truck while attempting to change lanes. In the sterile language of police reports, it is a collision. In the reality of human existence, it is a nightmare. 2 people, described as close friends of Joshua and integral parts of his inner circle, lost their lives in that moment. The shock of it is a punch to the chest because of the proximity to the mundane. We are used to seeing Joshua in the controlled chaos of the ring, but seeing him being helped out of a mangled vehicle, shaken and injured, strips away the persona of the heavyweight Hall of Famer and leaves only a man carrying the weight of a loss that no MRI or X-ray can fully quantify. And yet, because we live in an era where tragedy is immediately processed through the meat grinder of the attention economy, the morning was almost instantly interrupted by noise. This is where the story shifts from a somber reflection on life's fragility into something far more volatile.
And he talked about it. He said, I don't want to do an exhibition against Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
He said, I'm only doing real fights. And of course, I can't get up high in weight, but I'll fight him in a real fight at the weight that I'm at. But Jake Paul, I mean, as of right now, for what he's doing, it's good for what he's doing. But once he fights a real fighter, it's going to be bad.
As the boxing world began to hold its breath, names like Logan and Jake Paul began to surface on timelines, and not necessarily for the right reasons. There is a specific kind of currency in the boxing world: respect. It is the one thing that cannot be bought with a massive YouTube following or a flashy promotional budget. When a tragedy of this magnitude occurs, silence or genuine empathy is the only acceptable response. But when the reactions feel flippant or weird or detached, as if the deaths of 2 human beings are just another plot point in a digital feud, the atmosphere changes. The scrutiny intensified the moment the word FBI began to float through the air. Even without formal charges or a verdict, the mere mention of high-level investigation acts like a bomb in a social media landscape. It creates a vacuum where paranoia blooms.
This fight was first announced. You had said something to the effect of this would end Jake Paul's career. After what you saw tonight, do you think that Jake should continue to box, or what do you think the future holds for him?
Yeah, I really take my hat off to. I mean, we have to see if it is a broken jaw. Those injuries are very difficult to come back from. But as AJ said, like that last shot would have knocked out a lot of heavyweights. And I know he went down heavy, but you know he was conscious on the floor. And I thought his game plan, although obviously very negative early on, which it had to be, was smart at times. And there were times where he held his feet and let his hands go. You know, it was a very one-sided fight.
People start connecting dots that might not actually exist, and curiosity gaps become canyons that can swallow a career whole. If the authorities are looking, people assume there's a reason, even if the investigation is merely a matter of due diligence. A routine check following a fatal accident involving a high-profile figure. The internet doesn't wait for the final report. It builds its own gallows. The unease grows because, in the court of public opinion, high-profile names aren't usually scrutinized for nothing. Or at least, that is the fear that now hangs over the entire influencer boxing circus like a dark cloud. The contrast between the warriors and the entertainers has never been more visible than in the aftermath of this crash. You have men like Alexander Usyk, Chris Eubank Jr., and Tony Bellew speaking from a place of grounded, raw solidarity. They understand the aftershocks. They know that when the gloves come off, the world is much more dangerous than a 12-round fight. Usyk's response wasn't performance. It was a man recognizing the sorrow of a peer.
Obviously, AJ is a fan of you, Mike Tyson. What do you think about the fight with him and Tyson Fury?
I'll tell you what, it's huge. There's something so big about it. And I think it's a big fight for British boxing, but not just that, it's a big fight globally. But we are in America, and I know Donald Trump wants to.
Then you have the professional management of Eddie Hearn, who moved into protection mode to ensure the families involved were cared for and that Joshua had the best medical attention. This professionalism highlights the hollow nature of performative sympathy. It exposes a gap between those who are actually in the trenches of a man's life and those who are just watching the metrics on a screen. Then there is the Joe Rogan factor. His reaction was a necessary pause in the circus. He didn't chase the drama or the FBI rumors. He focused on the sheer physics of survival. He voiced what many were thinking but were too caught up in the scandal to say. Anthony Joshua is lucky to be alive. To survive a collision of that magnitude without being severely or probably dead is a miracle of inches and seatbelts, or the lack thereof, in a paradoxical twist of fate. Rogan's silence between words carried the weight of reality, reminding everyone that while reputations can be rebuilt, lives do not have a reset button. He focused on the medical reality, the need for scans, MRIs, and checking for internal bleeding, because adrenaline is a lie that tells you you're okay when you're breaking inside. But the digital beast is never satisfied with medical updates. It wants a villain. It wants a gotcha moment. When Jake Paul posted a reaction that many felt was casual or flippant, it felt like a crack in the door of public trust. When you are a man like Joshua, dealing with the loss of friends and the physical toll of a crash, the vibes of a post matter. In a moment where dignity under fire is the only thing that matters, some people looked weird. And weird is a dangerous word in a social media war. It implies something hidden, something off-kilter, or a lack of basic human conscience. It is the kind of perception that hardens into a narrative before the police can even finish their lane change analysis. The end of this story, as it currently stands, feels ugly and legacy-breaking. Not necessarily for Joshua, who remains a victim of a horrific accident, but for the entire influencer boxing ecosystem. If even a fraction of the whispers regarding scrutiny or dark questions turns out to be real, the entire circus could detonate overnight. The boxing world is currently stuck in a state of unresolved terror, waiting for the next update, the next archive of a deleted post, or the next official report. We are watching the intersection of a tragic accident and a high-stakes investigation, and the tension is palpable. People are checking receipts, looking at timelines, and waiting for the one detail that could flip a hero into a villain or confirm a tragedy as a scandal. What remains, when you strip away the tweets and the rumors of federal involvement, is a man who lost his friends. While the internet argues about Logan Paul's ego or the logistics of a stationary truck, Anthony Joshua is in a hospital or a private room, processing the fact that people who were laughing with him hours before are gone. His silence is perhaps the most powerful part of this entire saga. In an age of instant gratification and constant self-defense, Joshua hasn't tried to spin the story. He hasn't tried to control the narrative. That restraint is a testament to the reality of his grief. It shows that he isn't playing a character in a social media drama. He is a person living through a nightmare. We have to be careful not to let the noise of the circus drown out the human cost. Two families are mourning. A champion is injured, both physically and emotionally.